So you did. I'm really glad that you brought up Xinjiang because I've done a lot of reading about that, and I've had a lot of really hard conversations. I've lost friends over it, and so I'm wondering if you. There's this really interesting Vice piece. There's this like 35-minute Vice documentary where this woman is traveling through China and she's in Xinjiang and she's like, oh, look at all the cameras and look at all the scary dystopian authoritarian.
What I think what's really interesting when I was there, right? The first thing you see when you get off the train station is that everything in China, in Urumqi, the capital of Xinjiang, is translated in both Chinese and in the Uyghur language, native language. So right off the bat, I mean, that's just not done anywhere in the Western world, right?
No.
So-called ethnic minorities all over the place in the United States who speak so many different languages, Korean, Chinese, Spanish. You have the same thing in Europe, especially with African migrants in that part of the world. But that doesn't exist in the imperialist core in China. It's everywhere. You couldn't find any advertisement, direction sign that didn't have that. And immediately I was struck, it's such a, just on that level.
No, we froze. Come back to us, Danny.
You also see just mosques everywhere. China actually has a really high, and the police are protecting these mosques. It's not the police.
Really?
The police are outside protecting them. They're literally there to ensure that they're not terrorized. Was they were actually targeting religious institutions and then blaming the government for it. So, you see this kind of environment, and of course, in China, there is a lot of surveillance technology. It is just a fact of life. And then what I like to just tell people is, well, what do you expect from a country that has literally been under siege since before 1949? I mean, we're talking about a situation where, China is still being attacked all the time. So, of course, you have surveillance in a society, but at the same time, there is a different political culture there, not just, social culture. There's a political culture there of understanding necessity. There's this idea that, we need security. We need the ability to build our economy. Life is getting better. Arguably life is getting more democratic. The anti-poverty program that is being waged there is a very interesting and very democratic process where you have officials needing to interact with the poorest people in China. But now they're being involved in this process of developing their villages, their regions of the country, which had been ravaged by just, horrific conditions, land conditions, all these things that we don't think about in the United States when, the imperialist media, the corporate media is telling us that we're the best and everything is great here. And in China, they're actually trying to build a land of opportunity for everybody. And they're trying to bring everybody up to the same level as best that they can using mechanisms that have existed around the world for centuries that have largely impoverished so many people. It's a hard thing to do. I mean, it's a very hard thing to do.
Yeah.
We're talking about places like Xinjiang, that whole province, land poor, so many economic difficulties for people who live in that mountainous regions. And now there's policies being implemented that help build jobs for people, incomes, like real incomes for the first time, real educational opportunities. And when I was in Urumqi, it shows. It is very, even though you can kind of tell that it's not as developed as Beijing, because Beijing has had 20, 30, however many years ahead of it. But it is very close to the level of development. You can tell that jobs, that local businesses, that people are being supported. Costs are low. People in Xinjiang, in Urumqi, were very positive about what is going on there, because it's the difference between, living in a home that when the wind blows, it's gone, versus now you have the government supporting building new homes, giving providing technology to allow for higher productivity of your businesses, of your farming, of your agriculture. You know, China has these hybrid seeds, which have done so much good in terms of rice and other plants and products, which have just, you know, just created this large rise in income. This is why poverty is going down, because there are these economic opportunities. One of the really interesting thing about being in Itamuchi was, you know, people are mainly thinking about their own individual uplift now, and when there is a prospect for higher incomes, higher wages, that you know, there's an idea that if you build up the productive forces, which includes the ability of workers to consume, that is what in Itamuchi is the huge thing. People mainly want to talk about their businesses. They mainly want to talk about their jobs, what they're doing, what they're selling, what they're producing. Like this is the conversation that people want to have. What's really interesting, I think, about this period of anti-China, just demagogy, you know, Xinjiang, all the propaganda against it, it very much mirrors what's happening in Hong Kong right now. I mean, a lot of the same, you know, the National Endowment for Democracy, big backer of the World Uyghur Congress. It's a very similar idea of there's this section of China that the U.S. and the West wants to divide and to create chaos and instability in order to disrupt what China is doing around the world, what China is doing inside of China. And the timing, right? The Belt and Road Initiative, which you guys wanted to talk about, that's when Xinjiang became part of the conversation. And it was because the way that the Anti-Poverty Initiative and the way that the Belt and Road Initiative has kind of merged together to focus on development in Xinjiang. Now people, they're going to be more attracted to, you know, bettering their lives. And that's what China is focused on. How do we better the lives of folks in this region, but also build this Belt and Road Initiative? Because guess what? Through Xinjiang province lies the rest of Central Asia and the rest of Europe, Russia. But that's what's at stake here, right? Yeah. So that's the larger issue here, is stopping the Belt and Road Initiative because it threatens U.S. finance capital, Western finance capital. That's if China is going to, you know, get into these agreements, which are much more favorable to Central Asian countries, African countries, countries in Latin America, even countries in Europe like Greece and Italy, which are very attracted to the Belt and Road for good reason, given that this is all of what the Xinjiang, it's not about Uyghurs, right? Not even the folks who are reporting about this know anything about the Uyghur Autonomous Region. And they're just looking to stoke the flames using just an age-old trick of colonial and imperial warfare. The camps, it's funny. It's hilarious. People, when we would ask people,
that's so offensive because
it is. It
like,
is offensive.
We literally have concentration camps here in America.
Yep.
Where we detain children and separate them from their families. Children that are literally dying in them.
Right.
From like the flu and, you know, these other, you know, COVID-19, all sorts of things. We have them here. That's not what's happening in China at all.
Yeah, no, people in China do not understand what concentration camps are. Like you ask them, people laugh. They think that you're joking or something.